G'day everybody, Jason Nick here from the Udder Farm.
Hey everybody.
We're bringing another Q&A around the fire tonight. So we've had 100 degrees Fahrenheit for you guys in Canada and the US, which is 38 degrees here in Australia today. So it's been a hot day. So I think we're expecting to get those high 30s, if not touching 40 later on in the week. So it's definitely a hot one. So we're set back off the fire a little bit. We've sort of got a few perspiration beads on our forehead already, but as we say, Q&A around the fire, we almost have a fire. So rain, hail or shine,
yes,
winter time, summer, we're still going to have the fire. So what I'll do, guys, I'll hand it over to Nick, and I think we've got 4 questions tonight, so roughly that 15-minute mark. I haven't got any actually been clock on the midnight, so no. I think I should be right. We go to 4 questions and that'll be it. So rightio, I'll hand it over to Nick and join me too while she ask me some questions.
Okay, so the first one is from Cameron McDonald, and he has said, good video. Would you consider baling after slashing, or is it better to leave the cut grass?
Yeah, I know where Cam's coming from here. Cam's coming from that blady grass video I did. We've got sections of blady grass that I'm trying to reduce down. So with regards to that one, Cam, blady grass, or cutty grass otherwise it's known, is generally a weed. I think it's classified as a weed most areas around the world. I know they have had success on a different topic. They've used cutty grass or the blady grass. They've had success leaving it on riverbanks or creeks. What it does, it mats the soil together, so it actually stops soil erosion, limits the amount of soil erosion along creeks. But that's probably all it's good for. It's definitely not a good forage material for animals, but if you had it in your creeks, you'd leave it there, because I don't recommend, or I don't graze my cattle down in my creek, because they're going to stove that creek in and wreck the natural environment there, like the ecosystem, because they end up caving it in. There's no ecosystem around, and they just turn it into dirt, mud, and then collapse it in. So you want to keep your livestock out of the creek where possible. So cutty grass or blady grass is good in that circumstance, but it's definitely not palatable in a mature state. So if I was to bale it, which I definitely wouldn't, it's not palatable. Any height over, I'd say 50% of maturity, so you're looking at, cutty grass generally goes up to 1 foot, 1.5 foot, 2 foot max. So anything above 1 foot really gets unpalatable. So you wouldn't bale it because it's got no goodness in it, and it doesn't hold goodness, so the cows wouldn't touch it. You'd spend all that money baling it, and they wouldn't eat it. Plus, not only that, I'm not in the game of baling or making hay on my property. I would sooner slash that grass down and it be adding the litter bank back onto the ground, because here on the Udder Farm, unlike the trial property, I haven't got much litter bank on the ground. So that thatch, even though it's weed, it still lays over and mats the ground. So when it rains, you're holding that moisture in the ground longer, because you've got that mat. Even though it's weed, it's laying it down, got the mat, the sun can't pull the moisture out the ground on you. So, and when it does grow back, when it's under that foot, it's higher in energy, because it's brand new green growth, and that's when the cows will eat it. When it is palatable, they'll come and eat it. And blady grass does not like being eaten, and it does not like being trod on. So the more animals down there when it's growing back, the more of a hammering it's going to get with impact, and it's going to die off. We've got areas here where we slash it when it hits that foot mark, and we've got areas here that are totally gone off the property now that we originally started with. Just by that, it grows up the foot, slash it, cows come, trample it, and they just we've got other grasses where we don't cut as much, and it's taken a bit longer. But if you want to get on top of it, keep slashing it and your livestock will eat it. But it's definitely not a grass, it's a weed, and I don't know anyone that grows weed specifically to bale. You're better off on the ground, because then it'll also, over time, it breaks down, and adding that organic matter or carbon back to the ground. The more carbon you got on the ground, the more moisture you can hold. So you're better off laying it over rather than reaping it off the ground and baling it. I do use bales, but I wouldn't bale on this property. I like to leave my grass on the ground, and I only like to graze 2/3 height. I do buy hay in, and that's what I prefer to roll out in the ground, because I'm using hay, which I want to have more of on the property. I've got enough roads grass, so I use different species of fodder in bale form that has come to seed. So when you're rolling it out and the cows are eating it and manuring on it, they don't eat that, and those seed goes back into the ground. So I'm using my hay that I'm rolling out to germinate. The last thing I want is to bale a weed and then have areas rolled out and then get more weed on the property. I'm trying to get rid of the weed, so I definitely wouldn't be baling a weed like blady grass and rolling it out, because you're just going to get more of. You want top quality forage or fodder rolled out, and then you get more of top quality forage. So I definitely won't be baling it, mate. I'll be laying it in the ground to add that organic matter in the ground. So I think I've probably answered that question. So yep, I think we'll move on to another one.
Yep.
It's getting a bit dark here now. So
I know it is, isn't it? Days go quick. This is from 3 Rivers Forge, and they have asked, have you had any luck with a roller / crimper pulled behind the tractor? They basically mimic what the cows do, just mashing the plants to the ground and crimping the stems to kill the plant or break off the dead matter. Watching a few vids, they seem faster than mowing by a goodly bit, and you don't have to worry about blades and whatnot.
Yeah, 3 Rivers, he's 3 Rivers Forge. He's one of our followers. He actually asked a lot of questions, so thanks for watching, mate. I know you're a regular watcher of the channel, so greatly appreciated. As for the crimping machine, I would say I have seen it, and don't get me wrong, there are definitely avenues for it in regenerative agriculture. If you're doing a lot of cropping, mate, that is the only way to do it. It's the best way to do it. It's like you've got to have a living root in the ground at all times, because that's the only way you're going to get the carbon dioxide and the sunlight out of the air to pump it through to feed the microbes. So what they do in regen ag for cropping wise, I've seen them use that machine with great success. They'll come along, once they've headed it and got the seed and got the crop off, they'll come along with the rest of the stem or plant and they crimp it. So it's breaking that sap cycle, but at the same time, they've got a seeder behind the tractor. So they've already harvested, they're crimping the residue over to break that sap cycle, so it slowly dies back. But as it's slowly dying off, it's still collecting carbon dioxide and sunlight. By that time, the seed they planted behind is starting, they just offset it, so it comes off right next to the plant they've just crimped. So a new plant's coming up as the old plant is dying. So you've got a living root in the ground at all times. You need that to keep the biology there. You need a living plant or matter so it can still grab the goodness from the air to feed the microbes. You wouldn't just crimp it, have it die off and have nothing replacing it, because you need that coming through. So I've seen it used successfully in cropping, but I would sooner use the slasher here than crimp it. Better still, I'd like my livestock to be laying my carbon down for me. Wouldn't have to use a crimping machine. So on the trial property, you see I've had great success there with the cattle lying over. And what they do left standing, within another 2 or 3 grades, it's died off and they're laying it back over anyway. They get the green clippings growing through it and they're laying that dead matter over. Plus the last thing I want to do is really buy a crimping machine. So like the previous video Cameron said, if I was to bale, I'm already up with, I need a baler, I would need a tedder to bale to turn it over to dry the grass out. And now this question, there's a crimping machine. So in the last 2 questions, there's 3 bits of equipment I need if I was to bale and crimp. And I don't like leaving my equipment outside. I spend way too much money on my equipment. I like to have all mine housed. So within those 3 bits of equipment, you're looking at in excess of $120,000, $150,000 to buy the baling machine and the tedder from the last question and the crimping machine. So to lay at $150,000 and even a good second hand, to get those 3 items, you're still looking at maybe 40 or 50K. The last thing I want to be doing is working hard raising livestock, selling livestock to pay interest and equipment off for the rest of my life. You just, you know, regenerative farming is simple. A tractor and a slasher, there's not much more you need, and the livestock. The more equipment you purchase, the more machinery you got, the more loans and interest you'll be paying. You virtually be working for the bank. So crimper definitely, if you're in the cropping industry, but I'm happy to, every 3 or 4 years when I need to do a sabbatical, I'm happy to go through and slash it. I don't need a crimping machine. I'd sooner have the slasher and use the cows to do the work.
Plus we get the manure from the girls too.
Yeah, well the manure goes back into the ground. Like a crimping machine's not going to give you manure.
No.
A crimping machine's not going to give you offspring. So it's actually costing me money, where the girls are making me money. But like I said, I've got a slasher. It's not, it's the same as a crimper. It's not giving me money and it's not giving me manure, but I need a slasher to keep areas slashed. So I'd sooner use one bit of equipment and slash the grass when I have to do the sabbatical. So yeah, so thanks for that, Three Rivers Forge, and it's good to hear from you, mate. I know you're asking a lot of questions, so I hope you're well. So we'll go on to the next one. It's getting dark awfully fast here. I think we left the timing a bit late, but anyway, I hope you can still see us here. I think a ski boat's just pulled up behind us. So.
Hello, darling. Okay, my turn?
Yep, your turn.
Okay, this is from Nicholas Margot. I hope I pronounced your last name correct. And he has asked, well, first of all he says hi, and he has said, how many cows do you use per acre?
Oh, Nicholas. I think I've answered Nicholas's question online, but it's way too big to answer online, so that's why I told him I'd leave it to around the fire. But mate, I reckon this would be $1 million question. I can see this is going to open a can of worms by me answering this, and I can see I may get a bit of feedback or backlash from this question, but I'm going to give it the best, because like I said, we try and keep it short, so everyone's going to have a different answer for this, Nicholas. So I'll give it my best, and then I'd say you might be reading the comments after this Q&A, and people also give their definition, because there's 1,001 definitions. So basically, when you say how many livestock do I use per acre, so I'm going to answer it quickly, and then I'll go into a few other scenarios. So on the trial property, that's only 3 acres in there, so I've never used a full acre, so I cannot answer it per acre, but I use roughly 3 to 4 head per 0.2 of an acre. So I try and high intensity graze, rotational graze my cattle. So every 12 hours, high intensity, I'm moving them through into a new cell. So if you roughly work that out, an acre, that's what I'm using, about 4 per 0.2, so times that by 5, so it'd be about 20. 20, so that's, point, am I calculating right? Yeah, times 5, 4 times, yep, 20, so 20 an acre. But having said that, I'll answer it right in the very end. This is the most important part. But having said that, it's what size are your livestock? So I don't know if you know the terminology or the acronym LU. That's a livestock unit. So with a livestock unit, that's still a bit in the air. It's whether you got a small animal like your Galloways, the small breed, or a Dexter. So they're a small animal unit. You get a medium size animal, and now you're talking about the Hereford, you're talking about the South Pole, South Devon, and then you get into the large framed animals, which is, you know, like your limousines and your Bazidays. So mate, you're talking, it's hard to answer it per head, because it depending whether you got small, medium or large frame animals here. So that makes a huge difference. And then you get into what they call an animal unit, which is, this is probably the better way of working it. So an animal unit is, they talk about a cow being, it's a universal unit is an animal unit. So basically a cow at 1,000 pounds, I've also seen people use a cow at 1,300 pounds, sorry. So 1,000 pounds is roughly 450 kilos, and 1,300 pound is roughly 600 kilos. So roughly that's an animal unit, and that's with or without calf, providing the calf is under 4 months, because a calf under 4 months predominantly is using a lot of milk, And then after that, after 4 months, it starts to use grass. So then you've got to put that into the equation as well. So I won't confuse the issue because that's got to come into the fraction because they're not going to eat as much as an animal unit. So you've got AU, which is an animal unit, like I just mentioned. You've also got what they call an SLU, which is a standard livestock unit, or SAU, which is standard animal unit. It's roughly the same thing, which is roughly working on a 1,000 pound or a 1,300 pound cow. You convert that roughly 450 to 600 kilos, roughly working on, like I mentioned before. So that's what a livestock unit is. So, but the most important answer to this question, which I'll come up now, I haven't covered it yet, so I've covered an animal unit. The most important part of this question is your carrying capacity of the pasture. So what I mean by carrying capacity is how much energy or how much forage have you got available on your property. So there's no use comparing my property with, say, Uncle Bob's property, who lives down in Victoria, who gets rainfall predominantly 3/4 of the year, whereas we get rainfall, fair enough, you had a heavy at late, but we can go and get half the rainfall they get in Victoria. Or just say you're in a brittle environment, or you're in an arid environment, or you're in the desert. You can't compare that, how many acres, how many head they use per acre in a brittle environment, to what we use here on the coast, where we get, you know, averaging 34 inches of rainfall a year. It's different circumstances, mate. So it's pretty hard. I can only talk for what I use here. And the same as yourself, it's depending on where you live. So it's a hard question to answer. But anyway, carrying capacity of a pasture, is you're better off working that out. So basically the carrying capacity is, it's estimated by measuring the available energy of forage in a Pacific grazing system. And what you do then is you divide that by the energy needs of one standard unit, which I roughly said an animal, and how you calculate that out is the amount of food that an animal eat is called an acronym again is AUM. So that stands for animal unit per month. So that's what you need to know. So that's one animal unit. And then what they're saying, it's roughly around about 780 pounds, which works out about 355 kilos of dry matter or forage intake a month. If you convert that to a daily, it's roughly 26 pounds a day, or I think that's around about 12 kilos a day. So you've got to really work out your carrying capacity of property, how much forage you got, and then how many animal units you can have. Because remember, you've got to sustain that all year round. And come winter time, when your grass is not growing, you may have to either cull through. So that's why a lot of people have their regular breeders, and then they'll have stockers. So come spring and summer, they'll use stockers or steers, but then a month or two out of winter, they'll fatten them up, get rid of them, and then carry their breeding stock through the winter months, because you want to reduce your numbers because the grass isn't growing as fast. So I think I've actually confused Nicholas there. So I don't know if he's going to go away more confused than when he started. But yeah, it's all about carrying. It's all about carrying capacity, mate. So you may have to go back and watch this question a few times. So I probably bamboozled a few people, but yeah, if you go back and listen to it, I hope it makes sense. So I think we'll get on to the last question here, Dale, because it's getting dark and I'm flat out seeing my camera in front of me. So I hope you guys can see us about now, but it's getting a bit late. I'm just feeling getting old, Dale. It's no need to have a go at my eyesight. I think you've had glasses before I have, so I need mine for reading. But anyway, we got one more there?
Yes. So this is the last one. Is that right? Yeah, we're on to number 4. This is from Mike Davis. And he has said, in the winter months, do you have cold wind and snow?
Ooh. I'd like to say g'day to Mike. I reckon Mike would have to be my biggest fan out there. Every single video Mike likes, he says g'day, and I reckon Mike's the biggest fan I've got. So there's a couple of close to Mike, but Mike would be my biggest fan, apart from my lovely partner Nicole. But yeah, Mike, thanks for the question, mate. As for this one, do we get snow? I would say in Queensland, no, we don't here, but down the bottom end in Stanthorpe, which is right on the border of Queensland and Victoria.
Ooh, yeah.
It's apple country. Yes, they do get snow there. I wouldn't say a lot, but I wouldn't say annually. But yes, it does. They do get snow. So as for we're here, Mike, I would say we do get, people don't think Queensland gets cold. Like, it does get cold. It gets down to 0 degrees here on the odd occasion in winter. So people said, oh, 0 degrees, no way. It does. Right here where I am in Queensland on the sunny coast or Wide Bay, it does get down to 0 degrees. So that's about 30 degrees Fahrenheit for you guys in the States and Canada. I know Mike's from the States, so it's about 30 degrees. So, but generally it's around about, I'd say 5 to 25 degrees here in winter, roughly. So it gets about 5 overnight generally, up to about 25 in the peak of the day. So it's beautiful weather in winter here. We love the cold, really nice to have a fire. It's really cold enough at night time to put a jumper on but then you're peeling off the layers and you're down to a shorts and shirts come the middle of the day. So 5 degrees, 25 degrees, I think that converts out for you guys in the States, US. I think that is around, I think it was 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Is around 5 to 25 degrees
over there.
Celsius. Yeah, so I think it's about 40 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly all the way through here in winter. Apart from, like I said, occasionally it's 0 here, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think that's about it. And I think I've got to stoke some more timber up because we're going to have dinner now and feed the dogs, and I don't want this fire going out, but I won't waste your time stoking that fire, so we'll call it a night, I think. So
yeah.
Righty guys, I'd like to thank you for hanging here right to the end and watching another Q&A. So hope you have a good morning, a terrific afternoon and an awesome evening, guys, wherever you're watching this from, and we'll catch you later.